right, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
My name is Vahid Chitsaz, part of the Elite Mastermind group. Arman John, thank you. I know there was a little bit of a delay, Instagram and the traffic both together, making this possible this morning. Arman John, I want to thank you for taking this time. I know you're a busy man. I was watching some of your videos on Instagram. You're killing it, man. You're killing it. You're just giving free content. I love the last 3 videos. I think those 3 mistakes are very, very vital for everybody to just be conscious about it. But before I give it all away, let's dive into it. Why is it important for individuals to read books, specifically Think and Grow Rich?
Well, I mean, I look at myself, and from a very young age, I started picking up business books, and they're a source for so many of the things that I know today. And the key is that a lot of the mistakes that I've seen other people make, I was able to avoid because of the books I read. But, you know, I got to make a whole series of other mistakes.
Right.
So, which is why I eventually wrote my own book. And I think I'm going to keep making mistakes and hopefully be able to write more books in my career. But
Definitely.
very
I
important.
was so excited to do the live with you. So I got another mentor, I got another coach and a business partner, Dr. Freddie Behin. And I was talking to him. I'm like, listen, I'm so excited. I'm going to do a live with Arman, and he's local in LA County in OC. And, you know, he's like, Arman? I was like, what do you mean, Arman? He's like, I know Arman. Me and him used to kick it all the time. I was like, you know Arman? Why didn't you introduce me to him? Like, what are you holding back? So he's like, yeah, I know Arman. He's a cool guy. You should do a live. I was like, so I go set it up, and then he confirms that I should do it. I was like, thank you so much for your blessing that I'm going to do it with Arman. So you're definitely known, brother. Everybody's talking about you, and a lot of people know you. So let's dive into it. Business entrepreneurship, specifically in 2019. What are some of your recommendations as an author, as a speaker, as a mentor, as a coach? What are some of the things that we should avoid, just like you said?
Well, I mean, I look at certain things that entrepreneurs and business owners do, and I think the mistakes that entrepreneurs make at the beginning are very different than the mistakes that business owners make, those who've gotten past the early stages of their business. But one of the key mistakes that I see people making is failing to make their business what's called gamified, right? Gamification is this concept of taking something and making it into a game, right? Like having numbers, having key performance indicators, and being able to take the business and make it very simple, where there's certain numbers that come at you on a day-to-day basis. And instead of trying to manage the entire business every single day and having your head in 1,000 different things, instead focusing on certain key numbers and making sure that those key numbers are staying on track on a daily basis. And when you do that, it makes a world of difference to your business. And it allows you to do what I just did for the last 2 weeks, which is I was traveling South America. I was in Rio for Carnival. And then I went into the middle of the Amazon and got to stay at a place where there were, we were piranha fishing and walking the rainforest in the middle of the night, and still managing all of my businesses and having a hand in my clients' businesses. And it's all because of that gamification, of having those key performance indicators that tell me where these businesses are at and the various departments within those businesses without actually having to be there.
So how does one do that in their business? And does the business owner need to learn that? So initially, if they can delegate that to somebody else, they should be watching their numbers? Or just give us an example of one of the businesses that you think specific numbers needs to be monitored on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, the answer is when it comes to KPIs, you should have KPIs from the very bottom of your organization all the way up to the top. At every level, you need to have key performance indicators. So I call myself a master business coach. And so I'm a coach to business owners who have typically a minimum of about 10 to 25 employees, all the way up to hundreds of employees, okay? And I have one client, they have tens of thousands of employees, but that's sort of a rarity. That in every single case, when I go into an organization, my key is to create KPIs throughout the entire organization. Now, when I go into organizations, most of them do not have KPIs, although the owners will claim, oh, yes, we have KPIs. What they mean is there's some numbers they have, that they check every once in a while. But when I say KPI, I mean numbers. that in this day and age, our text message to your phone every single day. So every day, at the end of the day, you get a text message that gives you the most critical numbers in your business. So I was just talking to, for example, a medical office, and they said, well, what KPIs should I be tracking? And this is a doctor who runs a medical practice, and they have 6 different offices. And I said, well, I'd have to get more to know your specific clinics more. But number one thing is, how many patients did we see today, right? You could be traveling the world. You could be in the middle of the Amazon. But imagine if I could tell you how many patients your practices saw today. Now, that number could be 20 for a small practice. It could be 200, 2,000, or 20,000. I don't care what it is, but you know what it is. Why? Because as you're tracking it on a daily basis, what's now happening is you're getting this thing that comes to you, this text message that comes to you. It says, today we saw, let's say, 400 patients, okay? And then they tell you, well, this is how this tracks us for the month, meaning for the month, we're at, let's say, 3,000 patients, right? And that means that we're tracking 97% to our goal for the month, which obviously you would have set before the month started, right? And then you can see numbers like, okay, how are we tracking compared to our 90-day average? And how are we tracking compared to last year this month? And when you do that, you start to see that one simple little number of how many patients we're seeing today starts to give you a wealth of knowledge about where the practice is at. Another one for a certain type of medical practice would be sales, right? Medical practices, obviously they bill insurance, but they also have direct sales, whether it's, you know, they sell certain products or certain services and things like that. So those sales can be tracked. And then there are dozens more things that you could be tracking. One of those things in most medical practices is going to be overtime hours. So most entrepreneurs or business owners find out, let's say if they have 25, 30, 40 employees, they find out that their overtime is going through the roof when at the end of the month or 3 months later, there's no money in the bank. Right, that's the KPI everyone looks at, which is the worst KPI, by the way, to look at. It's not a key performance indicator
I don't get
at all.
overtime. I think my overtime is I got to answer to my wife. So you need to meet my wife and talk about the KPI because I'm doing a lot of overtime and I'm not getting paid for it.
Be careful. I might teach your wife to keep KPIs on how many hours you're spending at the office that you should be at home.
It's so crazy because as entrepreneurs, one of the things, Arman John, is that entrepreneurs are passionate. I mean, you talked about passion and all that stuff on your videos. When they get passionate about something, I think the concept of time just becomes unknown. Now you no longer, there's no days or nights or weekends or Saturdays or Sundays. I have had some of my biggest, most important appointments, meetings, masterminds on Sundays, where most people are just chilling, relaxing, or doing whatever it's necessary for their lives to do, right? But to me, I'm looking and I'm all like, so if I would have just cut Sundays and those important meetings out, a lot of my career wouldn't be here today. Because it's just me cutting those days out. So KPI is a good thing and it's not a good thing. So I think entrepreneurs, you need to do as many hours. But no. You bring up a very, very good point. And let me tell you why I say this is because in Think and Grow Rich, Dr. Hill talks about it, that you must, track your goals. What are you willing to give for it? And what are you trying to, receive in return? And how are you going to do that? Your strategy plan. I'm going to do this many this many that. I'm going to do these certain activities and I'm going to eliminate these other type of activities that's not giving me the results that I want. So keeping track of some type of a report, I highly recommend that. And that's one of the things that I do. Let me tell you what numbers I keep, what's my key KPI, what my numbers are. Because I've been on Instagram for like, God knows, like a year or so, and I noticed all the top elite people, they always talked about their numbers. What is their engagement? How many followers? What's their like? All of that stuff. So they've been monitoring that. So I realized about a month ago, I was like, this is so difficult. It gets so annoying that you got to keep track of all this stuff. Can we figure that out? So I found a website. At the end of the day, just like you said, it sends you a report and you look at 3 numbers. And if those 3 numbers are good, positive in the greens, that means your content is good, your stuff is good. If they're in reds, that means, okay, today what we did not perform the best. So you got to have that. So past month, it's been much easier on me. Now I know exactly, now I'm not worried about it. I'm like, okay, we're in greens. So now we can do whatever we want to do. It's cool. Our numbers are where they need to be. So I always, monitoring your numbers is definitely good. So Arman, tell us, how did you get into speaking and being a mentor and having this much business knowledge? Give us the secret.
Well, you know, I'm 42 years old, and when I was 15 years old, I dropped out of high school to start my first business. So in the
Where did you
early
go to high school?
90s, we're in Southern California at Capistrano Valley High School. And so in 1993, I dropped out of high school. I started my first business when the computer, I won't even call it the internet, computers were starting to boom. And I was one of these tech geeks who sat at home tinkering with computers, and I figured them out. And so I started a tech company, and I did very well for a few years, and life was good. And it was my first entrepreneurial venture. At one point, I decided to go back to school, so I sold that business. And I was one of those people who at a very young age achieved financial success and success in a lot of ways, but I was unhappy. And the reason was because I was uneducated, and in the family that I grew up, education was everything. And so I saw where I struggled in business because of my lack of education. And so I went back to school and got my degree in neurobiology and went on to Harvard Medical School and studied 2.5 years there before dropping out. That's a whole nother story. We'll get into it in another interview. And then went back into business. And so throughout my career, I've started 12 different businesses. 7 of them I own today. Several of them failed because I made some of the mistakes I tell people not to make. Many of them have succeeded, but they had times where they were within inches or millimeters of failing. And I just went in there and I grabbed them and I pulled them out. And it's funny because as I talk to you and you describe your experience and how you lose track of time, and you know, Sundays become a day that you become are some of your most productive hours. See, that's how I know, without having ever met you in person or seeing your office, that you're a real business owner and you're a real entrepreneur. You know, you talk to these people who think that entrepreneurship is going to be this 40-hour-a-week job, or worse, they think they're going to get away with it in 30 hours.
40 hours in 3 days.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Especially when you're launching the business, right? So one of the things I tell entrepreneurs is, and it was a post I made recently, is I said, you know, don't look at successful people and do what they do. Okay, that's a mistake. You can't look at someone who's successful and say, oh, I'm going to do what they do. Like some young kid looks at me and says, well, Arman was, you know, running around South America for 2 weeks, so I can do that and I'll be just as successful as him. No, where were you when I was pulling 120-hour weeks? Where were you when I was sleeping in the office? Or when I'm in on a vacation somewhere and then I get my KPIs and something doesn't look good, and I start messaging back and forth. And the next thing you know, I'm missing tours that I was supposed to be on, right? And my wife says, come on, honey, we got to go. I said, no. I don't like what I'm seeing here. And the next thing you know, I'm spending 5-6 hours for, you know, skipping $1,000 tour that I should be on because I'm focused on a number. And many times where I've gone on that flight and come back home because I realized that my business needs me. But a lot of young entrepreneurs miss that. But I can see, you know, you're a successful business owner who's been there and done that. And for me, the way I got into the speaking and all of this is, you know, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love starting new businesses, but I don't love operating them. Once they get past the point where I've solved the basic issues and problems that I got in there for, I get bored. You know, someone like Mark Zuckerberg, he started Facebook and he's still doing it, you know, over a decade later. And I'm assuming he loves it. I couldn't do that because he can stick with one business and just keep chugging away at it. And you know,
I think Arman, that's your Persian DNA, brother. That's your Persian DNA. That's not letting you continue on one path.
It could be.
Listen, I cried for almost 3 days when I dropped out of biomed from UC Riverside. I cried like a little girl for almost 3 days. I was so disappointed at everybody and myself. And I was like, I wanted to become a physician and I saw what they did and it just was not from heart. It was just more like, it's a business, but it's a business of healing people. But it was a business first versus healing people first, and then the money came. So I share the same thing with you, but I cried for 3 days, man. And I'm not proud of it, but I lit it out, and I'm glad that I got over it. And that was because other people wanted me to do that. And I was brainwashed that that is the path to fulfillment. And I think for some people it is. It just wasn't for me. So I'm part of the lucky one. I think I'm the blessed person that realized that that is not the path. And I can just do a 180 and just go back and just do something else. So when you talk about, you know, schooling and everything else, as a matter of fact, let me tell you what's going on. This is a bombshell I'm just dropping right now. As of yesterday, we started working on the handle education. And we're going to be working on that page heavily to just bring a lot of entrepreneurs and just talk about purely educating people on tips and tricks that they've done in their business, but turn this whole entire education upside down. We're not going to change the world, but I'm pretty sure we're going to change a little small community. I'm okay with changing 100 people's lives, and that's it. So we just launched that. I'm very, very excited. I was already doing 50, 60 hours, but I think now I'm going to do like 100 hours. But we're going to definitely have you on other channel to just purely talk about that. Who should go to school, who shouldn't, and at what moment should you cut the umbilical cord and just say, this is not for me, I got to go do something else, or I got to get a job, or I just got to go become an entrepreneur, whatever the case might be, or I got to take more classes, or, you know, instead of taking 5 years to finish school, you know, why don't you, my sister is a physician, you know, she should have done that. She wouldn't have been a good businesswoman. Like, it would have been very difficult for her. So education path was for her. My wife is an attorney. Education, you know, is for her. She loves law. She loves that stuff. For me, it was just like, no, we got to do that. So that's why.
Well, but anyway, the key is, as we have young people out there watching, and young could be really any age, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I don't care. But as people, especially in their 20s, are watching this, I want to make sure they understand that I didn't quit my education, right? What I did is I changed the way I educated myself. It's a very, very important distinction to make, okay? So first of all, for me, you know, I worked my butt off and graduated from one of the top schools in the world, UC Berkeley, and then I went on to Harvard Medical School. And 2.5 years into Harvard Medical School, I decided that I was going to pursue my passions, but in a different way. And from the day I left medical school, what I can tell you is this. First of all, I dropped out at the top of my class. It wasn't like I was failing and I was running away from something I was failing at. I was succeeding. And then I dropped those books, okay, where I was studying 12 hours a day, and I picked up other books and I started studying 16 hours a day, right? So it's not that I dropped education. Anytime you drop education, you're done. And, you know, we're on a program here where you specifically focus on this one book, which is probably, if not the greatest book ever written, one of the greatest books ever written. And so it's important for everybody to understand your education never ends. And in fact, that's one of the biggest mistakes that I say business owners make is they stop growing. They stop educating themselves because they think that somehow they've made it. You know, they're a millionaire now. And I say, well, you know, this day and age, million isn't what it used to be. But even when it used to be something, it's not enough. You've got to keep growing. You've got to keep pushing ahead. And it's not just for the money or the job or the titles. It's because your brain up here, it requires that constant input of knowledge and information to allow you to go to that next level. And so for anyone out there who's watching this and gets inspired by me, and I'll put inspired in quotes, and decides, that's it, I'm going to quit school. I say, wait, hold on a minute. First, what I need you to do is
my wife is going to have issues with you. You know, she does not want anybody to quit the schooling for any.
I don't.
Have them contact you directly, and then you have them quit.
What I say is,
it wasn't because of our channel.
What I say is if someone wants to quit school, I say, awesome. You have finals coming up next week. First thing I need you to do is go ace those finals. I want you to get perfect scores in your finals, right? Prove to me that you can do that, because if you can't do that, then what it tells me is you're failing at something and you're quitting, which means you're going to go pick up something else, like you're going to start a business, and guess what you're going to do with that? You're going to quit that too, right? So what you got to do is develop this pattern that you don't give up because something is hard, especially if you're giving up school to go start a business. Let me tell you, I've been through
That's
school,
nice.
and school is way easier than starting
Easier.
a business. Okay,
Way
I don't care
easier.
what school you're at. It's easier than owning a business. Now, for those of you who are in school, don't take it lightly, right? I'm not saying it's easy. No, it's like 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day of hard work. But if you leave that and you go into the business world and try to start your own business and try to start an empire, trust me, it's going to be even more work, especially if you couldn't get through that first part. So I think for business owners out there, it's critical that you're constantly educating yourself, and constantly growing and making sure that you're taking in this new knowledge and applying it in your business every day.
I agree with that 100%. Arman John, I want to thank you, and I would definitely love to invite you on different channels that we got so we could continue our conversations. I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that they need these type of information. Just even if we can guide them to the right direction, that would be, we have already done our job. So we definitely want to invite you to be there, and hopefully you and I could work on that. You're very close by, so we should start a mastermind group and invite a couple of people in, and we invite a lot of the younger entrepreneurs, and maybe we can mentor them and get them on the right path so they could do better than us. That's what I want.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much for taking this time and being here with us.
Thanks for giving me your time, and thanks everyone out there who's watching. It was amazing.
You got it, brother. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.